We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is PCar Talk. All right, welcome to another episode of PCar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we want to thank JRZ for our sponsorship with them.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't paid attention and listened to every single show yet, they're a major sponsor of ours, and they have been for the last several months, and they will continue to be for several more months. So we're thankful to have them. They do
for a while.
Yeah, they do everything, right? And,
on-road, off-road, track.
We're trying to get my stuff here from Amelia. Fingers crossed if it gets here. You guys will be the first to hear about it, obviously, and then we're going to try to do some video on it. Just like everything, if you guys have multiple cars and you guys are familiar with this stuff, everything is crunch time. I'm going to be at Ruckus Rally, which we'll talk about a little bit, all the way till Sunday. This stuff may or may show up, meaning suspension Monday or Tuesday.
3 days or 2 days or a day.
Yeah, and it's not me installing because I need to go to a place like where it does it properly, and there's alignment and all this shit like that, and corner balance it and all that kind of stuff. So like then I put him in a strain, so I call my installer and I'm like, hey man, I know this is super last minute, but we're leaving for Amelia Thursday morning. So essentially you've got like 2 days if this thing shows up, if that, or maybe a day. And he's like, well, if it's here, we'll work it out, we'll figure it out. So he's super awesome, and we'll see if the JRZ stuff shows up before then.
We'll see it at Barn.
Yeah. If it shows up, awesome. If not, well, it's not like you won't hear about it. It just won't happen prior to Amelia. But typical car stuff, you know, if you're familiar with that, is you have all the time in the world.
Until you don't.
And then it's days before something happens, and it feels like you're trying to do everything last minute because everything shows up 72 hours prior to departure for whatever reason, or who knows.
I remembered I ordered stuff because I got that situation before we went to DRT, and I remember I forgot that I had parts, and I messaged Corey. I was like, hey, so I have like all these things, so I'm going to be by on Saturday.
Yeah.
So getting a couple things done.
But yeah, so want to thank them for the suspension. Super excited to have it. It's going to transform that car, so I'm really, really excited about that. And they'll transform your car too, so go ahead and take them up on sponsoring us and maybe making a suspension for your car, because everything they make is essentially one-off. They have parameters and stuff is already kind of set, but it's not like you would imagine where there's just shelves and shelves and shelves of this stuff. They usually try to make it so it's fresh too, because in a lot of these reservoirs are running nitrogen and all this kind of stuff, so they want to make sure everything is on the up and up and not just kind of sitting in overstock for eternity, essentially. Want to thank everybody who commented on the last show positively,
they're everywhere, that
stepped up and said that they enjoyed the show. So we decided to not take a summer break based off of those comments.
You're welcome.
Thanks for stepping up and saying something. I mean, I'm still going to probably go to California for 3 weeks, but we're just going to have to like work ahead, essentially.
We'll figure it out.
Which isn't a problem. We've done that multiple times before in the past that you guys don't know. That's all, you know, stuff that's handled in the back office that you guys don't realize, that sometimes we're stacked up on, you know, with a couple shows in the deep, but we'll just work ahead and make sure that happens. Again, want to thank everybody who did comment. If you are a listener and you haven't posted a comment and you have some constructive criticism and positive comments, go ahead and leave those comments for us on iTunes. And give us a rating on there, because that helps us out a lot.
A review.
I know I seemed a little bit, I guess, for lack of a better terms. Yeah, we don't need to be tactful. I mean, I'm not usually that guy anyways, kind of like an asshole. I was kind of pissed off. But, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, you guys don't realize, but we do kick our ass to try to do a good show for you guys. I know it seems like we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, but, you know, actually Aaron and I are very organized. But we try to come off as it's kind of a chill thing anyhow. But yeah, I just kind of was pent up, I guess, because it seems like a lot of people out there are getting a lot of love, and not a lot of it was coming our way. So I was kind of a little pissed off. So, and you guys heard that, and we appreciate you guys coming out. So I'm a lot more calm this week than I was last week, probably because I'm going on a trip tomorrow, so my mind is somewhere else.
It's hours away.
Let's go through the new member list, because there's a few of them actually. So
I think you got 4 or 5.
Yeah, so want to thank Bill D, Miranda A, Scott H, Corey C, and Kevin E, all brand new members to PCar Talk. Yep. And the last time we've actually made, since we made the last announcement. Want to thank all you guys for becoming PCar Talk members. It means a lot to us because all of that revenue actually goes back into the show and pays our monthly internet fees, service fees, and our Lipson fees, and all this other fees that goes into all of this stuff because it accumulates to about like $200-300 a month just to run the podcast
easily.
Through all of these things that you have to do to submit all of this stuff. You can't just kind of record it on a phone and just upload. It doesn't work that way.
I mean,
so
you could, but it wouldn't sound like it does.
Yeah, but then it doesn't get distributed properly and all that other shit. So like I'm giving the real macro view of this here. Like we can get into the weeds of it. I mean, we don't want to bore people. This is a Porsche podcast, right?
Not about the podcast.
But want to thank all of those people that are new members. Your stuff will be coming out to you guys shortly. Yep. We appreciate your patience on that. I think are the cards in for the people that have become new members? We're still waiting on those.
Weeks. They take like 2 months to make.
Yeah, the metal cards. So yeah, everybody who's listening, if you haven't got your metal card yet, it's not because we're holding back on them. We're just waiting for them to get stamped still. Yep. If you're an RS member and if you're not an RS member and you're wondering what we're talking about, all the RS members get metal RS member cards.
Yeah, they're lasered and then printed with the RS member on one side and PCar Club on the other.
Yeah, so we're just waiting on those to get printed. Like Aaron said, they take some time to get here. Yep. You're
on the spreadsheet as awaiting inventory.
Trust me, you will get your stuff. Don't worry.
It also means that we're down to like 2 or 3 spots. 3, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I think you and I discussed that offline, right? So I think we're literally at 3 spots left of the 100 and before we close the door and start taking a waiting list. And that's no pressure for anybody who's on the fence, but just letting you guys know, like, we are cutting it off at 100. And then if everybody continues to renew every year, then the list will just continue to grow on the waiting list. So that's how it'll work. And we've described why we're doing that in the past. Yeah. If you haven't figured it out, go listen to some of those other episodes. I don't want to be overly redundant with that.
Well, I mean, I think we're also gonna there'll be some new stuff coming as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna wait till that was like active before I brought that up. So I don't think that's
saying there's new stuff.
Yeah, it's not active yet, right?
No.
Okay.
I actually accidentally activated it and then had to figure out how to unactivate it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's good.
So Ruckus Rally, I'm sure some people may have heard of it. It's a new rally. It hasn't existed yet. I have been getting messages from people. I'm not hosting it. This is Charles Stanley's thing. I get
the conduit. Yeah. Mike's always the conduit. Hey,
exactly.
What's going on there? Hey, what's going on with this rally?
Hey, you're the information guy. I'm working the information desk usually. Like, how do I get in with this? I'm like, their window's over there. I'm going to point you to them, and you can go ask them. Aaron's window is over here. You can ask Aaron where he's at, like, with that stuff.
Use at the door, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of that, but anyways, it's essentially, so I don't get into a long drawn thing with it. Essentially, if you're familiar with Targa, or at least heard of Targa Carolina, this is essentially like Spring Targa Carolina, but it's not
a derivative, but directly a derivative.
Yeah, it's hosted by the same guy. It's essentially the same people, but we are in a different location. Like, nice. So we're going to be in Virginia, and exploring different roads. So essentially, if you're on the Targa invite list, you are on the invite list for this Ruckus Rally, Roanoke, Virginia type of deal. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to stay in Charlotte for a couple of days with Chris, our nice. JRZ rep, and then I think we're going to caravan out with a handful of other people from Charlotte to
save you some
Roanoke.
Time up? Or not really?
About 4 hours.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So it's about 8.5 to his house from mine.
Okay, so like a little Atlanta drive-ish.
Yeah. And then Sunday, like the gauntlet drive home is like 11.5 hours, like usual. But that's the same what it was for me when I left Little Switzerland. Yeah. Like when I drove home that day, I just got up at like 4 or 5 and just slammed the road, and I was home by 5 the same day, so it wasn't too bad. You can pull crap like that when you're just traveling solo, usually if you have a co-pilot, they want to stop and they want to eat. Like, I just go
he's got beef jerky.
I just go full fasting mode and bring drinks with me and fill up and gas all at the same time, almost kind of like Cannonball Run style. It's like, man, hey, we're getting home.
His counter's already prepped. I saw the Yamato and I saw the beef jerky. I was like, oh, he's going on a trip.
Yeah, it's like... But yeah, it'd be interesting to hear if any of you guys going on, like, if you go on road trips, not even just Porsche stuff, but if you go on road trips with friends and it's car related stuff, like, do you guys stop as many places as you can on the way back? I think everybody's kind of that same way. Like, on the way there, it's fun.
I'll tell you,
if it's destination.
You know who's not? Oh, Mark Urbanek is not. Mark, like, he makes a journey out of the journey.
Yeah, but usually Mark, like, it's still planned, even though, like, it seems like it's not planned. His trip, his roundabout trip, is still planned. Is a planned. Yeah, it's a
trip session.
Exactly, it's a roundabout trip planned. I could easily do that too, but unfortunately, like, once you get into Florida, there isn't really shit to see anyhow. So it's like turn and burn and get home anyways. And I don't know.
Like you, I just get that focus and just like, oh, time to go home.
Well, I think too, it's one of those deals for me. Like, if I'm going to a rally, like, we're going to drive some roads in Charlotte. We're going to have some driving days, pre-driving days, which will be fun.
Warm-ups.
And then if I drive for 2 days straight for 10 hours each day, I'm not saying like I'm driven out. Not that I wouldn't like to go see roads and stuff on Sunday, but when I'm still 12 hours away from home and I don't plan to stay anywhere in between, I probably need to get my ass home because I don't have lodging. So it's one of the, I mean, I could.
Chris, I'm coming back.
But it's one of those, yeah. I even thought about that too. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just crash at his place. But I'm like, yeah, it's only like a 4-hour drive. I'm like, dude, it's like you got a lot of day left. Yeah. You decide you're just going to stay here the rest of the day or go home. And I actually have stuff to do when I get back. So it's one of those things too. Suspension. I got to pick the Cayenne up.
Hopefully suspension, right?
Yeah, that'd be nice. I got to pick the Cayenne up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. You know, update with the Cayenne. Not that it's a big update. Apparently, on mine, there was on Gen 1s, there was a shift linkage recall, factory recall that they fixed it where the bushings fail. Well, mine failed. I didn't know that because I bought mine probably 15. I'm the 15th buyer for it. Who knows? Who knows? But anyhow, I just called the dealership and asked them about the VIN because my independent mechanic was like, well, it should be under factory warranty. If it is, you know, have them do it. If not, we'll take care of it. And it was. So yeah, it had to be towed there because it literally failed as I like had it in gear. Yeah, I didn't go. It's boring shit. So that's why I didn't go over it too much.
I mean, here's a perked up. You've given me lots of reasons to get a Gen 1 Cayenne. I mean, they've only had like 3 things I know of go bad, but they're like nothing, all the mileage things. They're not like,
and they're not even that major. Even the things that go bad, it's just serviceable. It's serviceable stuff. They're not. Yeah, they're not. Yeah. It's not catastrophic shit where the car's going to grenade. It's just little things that go with like coolant pipes. Okay, mine started to leak. Then it was time to do it, and you go get it done. You buy aluminum ones. It's, you know, things start to like, the one thing it didn't warn me is the drive shaft, or I mean not the drive shaft, the linkage. I literally was backing out to go get something to eat and the thing was stuck in like reverse essentially. And like I jimmied it around as much as I could. I think I got it in drive, just limped it back into the driveway and like literally it was doing whatever the hell it wanted to do. So Corey came over and put it in neutral so we could get it towed out of here. But yeah, I mean, that's minor stuff. Like, that's wear and tear shit.
This is a new in metal, or you don't know or don't care. Porsche's replacing it.
Yeah, they're replacing it. I think the bushings are just a little bit more robust. Because that's what really failed on there. Because there's rubber grommet bushings, and they get brittle and old. And once those fail, like, that linkage comes loose, and then it just basically will not control the transmission anymore. Yeah. So I think they just make them, like, maybe they're out of poly now. So I think they're just stronger.
Yeah.
Plus, so that was a sidebar. That wasn't even a planned topic, but yeah, I got to do that when I get back, and then I have to get my shit together for Amelia. So there's things I have to do. I can't just Mark Perbanik my way back home. And he could even if he wanted to, because he lives where Amelia's at. So he could screw around all week and just show back up at home and be at Amelia. But we actually have to drive back up. So, so that's what Ruckus is. Ruckus rally. But I think the neat thing that Charles is doing with this rally, which is unique to the Targa Carolina one, even though it's similar people, it's going to be different roads, probably similar kind of layout, similar stuff like that. But the interesting thing that he's done with this is he's done a night drive involved in this. So there's going to be a night drive, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be a night drive where we're trying to put down. Yeah, I don't think we're trying to put down lap times, but I think it's more of kind of just the fun, like, and there's a destination for it too. I think we're going to the Roanoke Star or something like that. So it's kind of a cool drive on that too. So I think that's a different element. I've never been on a rally we've done anything driving related at night. So that's going to be interesting. Hopefully everything goes okay.
We wish you well.
Yeah. Aaron is not going to Ruckus Rally.
Shocker. Surprise. Well, I didn't know about whether my time off, my PTO was going to be where it's at now. So.
Yeah, you'd be blowing the car down anyways. We don't need you in there.
That's true.
You need
extra weight.
If I just hold you out of the, like, letting you ride shotgun, eventually it's just going to force you into buying your own car. Is my theory behind this, right? Theory. It's the dad bird and the baby bird in the tree, and it's like, look, I'm not going to fly you around. Like, eventually you're going to want to fly out of here. So
if you want to enjoy these things,
you want to, like, I'm going to go fly for a little while. If you want to come with me, you need to fly too, or you can sit here. Those are your options. But
Nest is awfully comfortable over here.
You're like, well, I'm not in a hurry. I'm good. Timing's not right. I'm just going to chill here. Porsche-related news instead of just screwing around, right, and talking your ear off. New Macan EV test mule spotted. We've talked about this in the past, not as far as that being spotted, but we knew this was coming. They're projected to go on sale in 2023. This is coming from the Porsche executive's mouth, saying that they've quoted saying there's going to be significantly more range in this car compared to the Taycan. That's kind of a bold statement, because isn't your Taycan supposed to be your flagship? So you're going to put a bigger battery and have more range in something it's probably going to cost a lot less.
Well, from looking at that article, it looks like it's going to be the same, the extended range. It's going to be that 93.7.
Yeah. There's going to be two options, basically a baby battery and a big battery. But
to me, I was going to ask you, just looking at the renders, and I don't even know if I've seen the real car, because now they were like, well, these are digital renders and these were real cars. I don't know what I've seen yet. But to me, I felt like the size of the Macan is like smaller.
It does look smaller.
Does it look smaller?
It does look smaller. But I think the architecture of it may be visually that way, just because of the lower center, this lower center of gravity.
Okay.
So who knows what the hell this thing's really going to look like by the end of the time. But I think it'll look pretty cool. There's not going to look like a run-of-the-mill crossover or whatever the hell this is categorized as. I think the most interesting thing is they went on record saying that this is going to carry more range. So they're going to have to live up to that, because people are going to hold them to that.
I mean, what do you think? To me, that range means like 400 miles. That's because they're at 200 and something, 250-ish.
Yeah, I guess another 100 would be significant, right?
It's still,
that's a subjective word to use.
Exactly. It's defining, you don't know what their more means.
Exactly. Well, they said significantly, so... Right,
okay.
But significantly more could be 100 to them, right?
Yeah,
so
I think we're somewhere.
I think
400.
That's what I was going to think. That's Tesla's wheelhouse. I think if anything, and the reason why I was thinking that too, I think it's going to be the same. It's the way that Taycan uses its energy, because it's supposed to be sports car-y. Even the bigger battery Macan, I don't think they're going to go out and say like, well, this thing can do 0 to 60 in 3, whatever the number is, like those wowing numbers. It won't be slow, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be, I don't think its goal is to be putting down blistering lap times. I think its goal is going to be transportation and range. I
think it'll still be faster than the normal Macan, just because torque.
Of course, I agree with that. I'd be willing to agree with that.
I don't think it's
but I think it's obviously they're going to be shooting for somebody to buy the bigger battery one and hope to get 400 miles out of it. And I bet you this comes in right around Model S price range, like 120-ish, I would bet. Well, from Macan.
I mean, and the longer range makes sense just because it's smaller. It's got to be less weight. I mean, I wouldn't say by ton.
Because I think the most expensive one will probably be over 100. I would have to bet that. I don't see one being under 100,000.
It does seem like they've kind of gone comparable to like even the Taycan versus Pan America. That's just what I compare it to. But as far as price range goes. It seems like they kind of followed that, so it looks like they'll probably follow that same model with their Macans.
Yeah.
How soon do you think the Cayenne's going to come out after the Macan comes out?
You know, they haven't really been talking a whole lot about it.
Canceled.
You know,
Done away with it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, and this wasn't something I was going to talk about with the Cayenne, but I was going to talk about this with other makes and models, with other manufacturers. In the 2023 timeframe, a lot of people are already going to have some type of crossover that exists that we're just speculating could probably deliver 250 to 350 miles of range. Hyundai, Ford, GM, all of these places are going to have that. Granted, they're no Porsche, but I think they were so first to the game on the Taycan. I don't think they're going to be first to market on a crossover. Like, obviously Tesla already has theirs. I'm not counting them. Everybody who's listening, I understand there's a Model Y and all that other stuff that exists with them already. I think because, I mean, the Mach-E already is out there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a crossover. That's a four-door thing. That fits that category. They're not in the same price point. But I think almost at this level now where almost everyone's expecting a certain level of tech, right?
Yep.
Regardless of who the manufacturer is, especially with the EV, because Tesla's kind of set that standard. So regardless if you're buying outside of Porsche, it probably won't be too far off the mark. I would think fit and finish, because you would think with maybe a Ford like a Mach-E, even a loaded one of those, if that can get 350 miles of range, the tech behind that's probably going to be pretty good, because people won't settle for less. People won't get in that and be like, this is old tech.
That's true. And how long is that going to last? I agree. And I think, now thinking about it, I think the Macan makes more sense because it's never really been considered an off-road car.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're taking their time to make sure the Cayenne can still go off-road, even though that might not make any
Possibly.
sense.
Maybe.
For the EV, or it doesn't seem like it would make sense.
Yeah. Maybe.
/ it's probably their best-selling car.
Well, I think they have a big task at hand, too, because they said by 2030, 80% of their fleet's going to be EV. That's a pretty damn bold statement. I mean, this year is almost midway through, so I mean, if you want to talk about it in car manufacturing years,
that 20%
that means we really only have really have maybe 8.5 years left before we start before they complete this.
As that statement said, as to it's 80%, we'll all have an EV model to choose from, or is it 80% like we're not selling any more?
They said production
wise. Okay.
I mean, all 20 of that's probably going to the 911, I would imagine.
Mine hypercar or whatever they have.
Yeah. So. But I mean, that's such a low number, and probably even transferring over to probably a combustion engine Boxster and Cayman, they'll still probably offer some facet of that, whether it be a hybrid. Who knows what the future holds for that? But I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't buy a combustion Cayenne, Macan, Panamera, any of those. Like, I would imagine that entire lineup going full EV in the next 5 to 6 years. We'll probably see that. I would imagine
it'd be more usable for a lot of people, because your range is going to go up. It has to go up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not like, it's no secret those things are still performance right now, so they don't get.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lowest comparison, right, like that people understand the most is kind of like the invention of the TV, right? When the TV first came out, we were dealing with this black and white monstrosity that was sitting around, and now we've gotten to these paper thin TVs that can process internet and have their own, and they have their own internet processor, and they can stream, and they can do all of these things. Now it's basically a computer, but it's a TV that hangs on your wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, the evolution of that obviously is a long period of time, but eventually the way of the electric car will probably go something similar to that. Someday we'll probably have something that does 1,500 miles to range or something like that. Who knows?
Yep. I'll want an update.
Yeah. Where it does, I mean, I know they invented these things where it does continuous trickle charging back into the battery, so you never actually lose any. But that's a whole nother debate, because then manufacturers would never sell cars, because then the car never degenerates or any of that kind of stuff. And now you don't need any type of anything from the manufacturer. The only thing you're changing is brakes and tires, essentially.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works if they go to kind of. I mean, because I feel like and at least for the sports, for the 911 and others in the range, they've always been kind of a tuner style modification thing. I wonder if with the 911, is there going to be any of that? Are they going to have like motors you could change out, that or is it just going to be a controlled process where it's all sealed and we just?
I was talking to Corey about this. He's my independent. He works for Tesla. He used to be a Porsche master mechanic, and we were talking offline about this. With the invention of that e-fuel, I think we probably bought, and if it works out the way it does, which it sounds like it would, because I'm sure Porsche wouldn't see this thing through to make sure it works properly. Probably bought cars another 100 years of combustion. People, I don't think people realize it yet because it's not really being talked about and advertised that much.
Just racing.
But once it's proven, the R&D's proven, it's refined in the same factories. It's traveled the same way. It's pumped into the same pumps. Like, essentially, where you can go buy non-ethanol gas, this could coincide at the same gas station where they're selling 93 dyno fuel.
If I had to go to the Porsche dealership to fill up my car with this e-fuel and pay whatever it cost, I mean, that they still have that too if they wanted to do that.
Well,
but I get what you're saying.
Well, the thing is like, yeah, the infrastructure is there is what I'm getting at, and it's not. And to be clear, it's not just Porsche's thing. They've partnered with Exxon, so they're partnering with somebody who does this shit for a living already. They're not trying to just figure it out on their own, but their engineers are working with them to make this right. And from what they're saying is it creates 85% less emission than traditional gasoline right now. That's a significant amount. Like that, in my mind, I'm not an EPA guy. I don't know what the regulation is, but that should pass for at least another 100 years, any combustion engine. Because if it's only emitting 15% of what it's doing now, and the cars are already passing, so it's going to, catapult this thing that much farther ahead to make it legal.
Multiple for the time that it's not going to affect it.
Yeah, sure. So I think what this is going to do is yes, it's going to cost more. They've openly admit that, but they were saying it maybe costs maybe $1 a gallon more, 75 cents a gallon more, which isn't, I don't want to sound pretentious, but that's not significant enough to say
it's like a premium.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. It's not enough to say, oh my God, that's taken me out of my car now. It's not that. If it was $10 more a gallon, now we're talking significant dollars, because if you're putting 16 gallons in your car and you're getting charged $10 more per gallon, shit, that's a hefty fill up. We're talking race gas now.
Welcome to Europe.
Yeah, we're talking race gas.
That's expensive there. Yeah. Anyway, and it gives promise too. If Exxon's working it, that means all the other manufacturers are working on something. May not be out there.
And here's the deal. Let's be real. It's just like the cigarette industry and all those other. Gasoline and petrol's a gazillion-dollar industry. They're not going to just close their shop up without a fight. They're going to hang on to the damn bitter end. And if they can refine their stuff to make it where it's doing what I just said, 85% less emissions, and they can do better than that. So maybe this is just going to force them to keep their product around, but maybe make it cleaner now. Make it better for everybody, and use less dyno fuel and all that stuff. So, and to circle back and close up on this Macan thing, a funny thing within that Porsche executives, when they were talking about it, they said there were some regions that they exhibited range anxiety with the Taycan. So they also realized that. So they're making sure with the Macan it does have a longer range. When he says range anxiety in regions, he means North America. Like we're the only ones who freak out about this kind of stuff. Like the rest of the world, like just deals with it. We're the ones that are like, oh, well, what if I want to drive to Knoxville? It's like, when's the last time you went to Knoxville in your gas car? Oh, never? So you're going to all of a sudden buy an EV and now you're going to go to Knoxville?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, in practicality, I'm just as guilty. But we say stupid shit like that. All of us do. Everybody listening, we all say dumb shit like that. They're like, well, what if I want to drive to New York tomorrow? It's like my dad saying shit. It's like, Dad, you don't leave the zip code. What are you talking about?
But what if I want to?
Yeah, exactly. What if I want? Well, there's the thing called an airplane.
Missions.
It's just one of those things where I think we're all guilty of it. I think I was one of the first, not the first ones to say, but I think I was the first thing out of my mouth when all this EV movement started coming in. I was like, well, how does it work if you want to drive across the country? Have you ever driven across the country ever in your life? No, I haven't.
It's on your bucket list. But
what I'm going to do in a petrol car, though, still.
That's true.
But I mean, I still haven't even done it to this point yet.
Yeah.
And I'm 40. So, Interesting enough. So let's close with, do you think, with what I said earlier about the other manufacturers having a lot of competition, let's just put it that way. Now, granted, Porsche's a Porsche, and we argue that a lot, and I agree with that. Their fit and finish is going to probably be second to none. However, when you're talking at something that's like maybe $110,000, $120,000, which I'm assuming probably the big battery Macan's going to fall into, and I don't know, I'm just guessing, probably a fully loaded Mach-E is probably what, 60?
Yeah.
If that, 50-ish?
Yeah, probably.
Granted, it's a Ford product. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm not like I'm not shaming them. Yeah, I'm just saying, but like, okay, so Macan maybe gets 400. This thing does 350. Does that delta?
I don't cross shop those cars.
I know you don't, and I know other people don't either. But where I'm going at is people are probably going to start cross shopping them because if it's an EV,
yeah.
And I'm not trying to silo people up because there are petrol people who like EV cars too. But in general, EV people do not care whose name is on the car. They do not care about almost design in general. They care about the tech. They care about the way the stuff works. They care about how all this stuff works together, how it integrates. Why Tesla's been so successful. It's a prime example why they've been so successful, because openly admitted, and we've all seen it, and if you haven't seen it, there's a myriad of YouTube videos. Tesla's fit and finish is trash. Their paint is trash. Compared to like their price point is what I'm saying. You're buying a $130,000 car and you can fit a iPhone 12 in between the panel gaps on the car, and they're not even consistent. Some are that way and some aren't. And then you have runs in the paint, you have fisheye and all that, but who knows? Whatever. What my point is that I'm making and where I'm going with this is those type of people do not care about shit like that. But that's what makes Porsche awesome, because Porsche people care about shit like that. So what I'm getting at is, are they going to be able to bring those people in, those techie people, at that price point? Because at that point, would they just say, dude, the tech is better in the Hummer, the tech is better in this, the tech is better in that? Because I feel like that's where the new, at least for the non-real car enthusiast, essentially kind of like IT people like you, the tech people, they're gonna find the most techie one, the one that has the best tech.
Yeah, the best specs out of it. Yeah.
I mean, that's just am I wrong? Does your headspace? You're a tech guy. What do you think about that?
I think it will be still discerning, but yeah, I agree with you on that. It's going to be whoever can make. Well, kind of agree that I disagree, because if you were to take the EV out of it and just go petrol, eventually it'd be the same thing. There's just going to be so many choices, and you might have brand loyalty still.
Yeah.
There'll be. I think maybe in the beginning there might just be whoever's best. But I don't know. I don't know about it. I don't see it.
And he described it too. All the people that are already Tesla owners, they're almost like iPhone owners, is the way he kind of described it. He's like, you still buy an iPhone, and you've always had an iPhone, so those people are always going to buy Teslas because they've always had a Tesla, and then that's just kind of one of those like niche things, and they're bought in on that. I mean, Porsche, in a sense, they're a motorsports brand, so they have their own struggle with their own customer base, trying to get them to hear this EV movement that's happening too. I think that's an interesting dichotomy that's happening with Porsche too, because whether that's being described or not, I would imagine from a sales perspective and the way you need to spin this to your current customers would be challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it, but I could also see if you have a current customer, which not everybody has multiple Porsches, but I would imagine that a good amount do.
Statistics show most people have more than one.
Then it's just an extra. It's an attribute. So
I don't think Porsche people will shop outside of Porsche for EVs. That's not what I'm getting at. I just don't think any of the newer people are gonna appreciate Porsche's fit and finish like we do. We're like, well, it's fit and finish, and look at this and look at that, and they're all like, oh, who cares? And I'm like, well, if they don't care about those things, how are you going to get them to buy the car?
You're saying new customer acquisition.
Yeah, I just think it'll be challenging for them.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because you're taking somebody who doesn't care about motorsports, and you're trying to sell them a motorsports name, but not a motorsports car.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still going to perform It's still going to be a performance or a driving difference. I guess that's always something that they've done.
That's
well.
one thing Porsche will always do. They will handle that.
I mean, so if you were to drive them back to back, that's where you would see the difference. And if you didn't care, you wouldn't shop the brand. I mean, that's just the way it's
Yeah, I just meant as far as like the younger generation of people, I just think they really do not care about brands at all.
Yeah, I think there's some care, but I think you have to curate that brand well, and that's what Tesla's done. That's why they're where they're at.
And I don't think it's going to be unique to Porsche. I think they're all going to have this challenge, right? Like every manufacturer that's producing combustion engines side by side with EV cars are going to probably have that challenge. Probably some a lot less than others because of the affordability is what I'm getting at. Is their barrier is going to be a lot less to conquer than maybe somebody like Porsche, because if you're making, like you just said, Honda, like if you're making a $35,000-$40,000 EV,
that Honda E, even if it is that much, it may not be, maybe less. Then why would you just get that?
Yeah, and you never cared about cars to begin with, so, and you're always buying Hondas, so it, you know what I mean. So it's never. What I'm getting at is I just don't know if these new people, they're going to be able to bring them in and wow them, because most of us. Yeah. Or the car people that are wowed by Porsches because of all of the amazing combustion stuff they do and all the racing stuff they do, and that's what really brings us to their street cars. So if you don't care about those things, like you're never going to be a buyer for Porsche, right?
I guess so, man. That just puts all these other brands too. I mean, anything else that's a sports car brand first in trouble.
Well, I think I think that's why there's such an emphasis for Porsche to. In my personal opinion, behind closed doors, I think somebody stepped up to the plate and says the combustion engine makes us who we are. Like that's why we need to do this e-fuel with somebody. We need to stretch the legs on this stuff as long as we can, because once sound is out, we have a problem. Like once we're not racing RSRs anymore, we have a problem. Once we're not competing at Le Mans with a combustion engine car, we have a problem from a manufacturing standpoint. I really do believe that. I don't think to the point where they're going to go under, don't get me wrong. However, it's not like Porsche's never been on the ropes before in their entire manufacturing career, as far as bankruptcy or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
that's true. They're still doing their Formula E stuff, though. I mean, so that's somewhat research and...
Yeah, I mean, it's R&D stuff. What I meant is, as far as... I think somebody saw the writing on the wall and saw that if there is ability to do it, then we need to invest dollars to do this.
Which has been a while, because I mean, when we saw the e-fuel stuff, but I'm happy to see it happening.
Because they're putting a lot of money into it. It's not like a sidebar like Black Ops project where they're like, all right, we're going to give you like $300,000. You guys go figure this out. Like they're dropping hundreds of millions of dollars into this, so they're trying to make this happen. They're trying to make this work. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll talk about some really interesting market eval stuff, and then give some congrats out and close with some more EV shit.
Because we haven't had enough.
Thank you guys listening to PCar Talk so much. We appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. Everything we're doing is trying to bring the community closer together. We definitely appreciate that. Also, when you go onto YouTube, if you could subscribe, maybe pass it along, make a comment. We really appreciate that. Now back to the show. All right, we're back from break. All right, so we kind of went over this maybe about 4 or 5 weeks ago when I was giving Aaron an earful about his air-cooled. Even since then, though, the market has gone up more. And what I mean by that is because of auctions, and people can argue those are outliers, but it seems like those are the prices. And because those are the prices and people are seeing that, it actually is making people that are having non-auction sales, when they list their car, they're setting at a certain price point too. So it's elevated the entire market, and that's air-cooled and water-cooled, actually. Yep. For example, in the 996 market, C2s are selling for mid-30s, high 30s, and low 40s right now.
Yep, all day.
And that's where I was like, oh, hunt down an AeroKit car, do all that. That's not an AeroKit car. That is a plain Jane.
Yeah. And mind you, he was hunting down this Aero car and was going to spend like 18 grand.
Yeah. And it was going to be like 40,000 miles in speed yellow. Like that car right now is probably bringing like 45, 50 grand. Yeah. A C2, 996, where people couldn't give them away.
And he was
paying that now.
And you were also kind of like, I don't know if I want to spend 18 grand on that.
I know. Rightfully so, though.
Yeah, you are. You did buy it.
But I mean, shit, there's people out there paying 40 for them now, which is insane. And it's not like a one or two. It's happening, and it's continuously happening. Prime example, I saw a C2 convertible. I think it was an 03, and it wasn't like a 1,000 mile example. I think it had 44,000 miles. It wasn't even like a crazy good spec. I think it was like black with maybe dove gray interior, black top. Car sold for $36,000 on Bring a Trailer. Now, I know it only takes one that wants that car, but what I'm getting at is it's nuts. It is nuts out there.
I think bravo to Bring a Trailer. I think they have the raise in the market. Just like
I think part of it because they're letting people fight over them. Also, I was talking to an analyst, I want to say a week or two ago about it, and in general, not just Porsche stuff, but and this isn't just U.S. stuff. This is worldwide stuff. This is happening.
Inflation.
But he was saying, and it's even outside of Porsche, even with like Ferrari and all that stuff, like 458s are super expensive now. And there's a different reason for that too. But they're the last combustion Ferrari made. The other ones have turbos now. So it's mid-engine NA. So no forced induction on that car. And that's kind of, pumping that car up. But it's kind of nuts because we're seeing all types of stuff, like really, really weird stuff. I mean, and I don't mean it in a negative way. It's just, it's shocking because you see these things and everybody I know already has an air cooled or a water cooled or whatever. And they see these things. We all have the same conversations. I'm sure you guys are having them with your friends when you guys get together and all this stuff. It's like, oh, have you seen this? And there's such a buzz around this talk. And I felt that we needed to bring it up again because it is just absolutely insane.
Do you think that there might be, well, I mean, I think some of the water cooled thing might be pent up demand for wanting an air cooled. And it was like, oh, it's kind of expensive. Let me do the
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's residual. I think it's collateral damage. I think there's people that are saying, okay, well, you want me to spend $70,000 for a 110,000 mile 86 Carrera, or I can spend $55,000 to $60,000 on a water cooled 996, and it's got AC and it works. And okay, I'll go get that instead. I think there is some of that happening, and I think because of that, it's also pushing those prices up in those cars too. I just, out of curiosity, not even Turbo S's, but just regular 996 turbos, I've been seeing some dealerships selling them. And now, I don't want to say they're cherry models by any means. I mean, they're 30,000 mile cars, 35,000 mile cars, but they're selling in the 70s, some of them in the 80s. That's the list. Now, somebody who knows what somebody's really going to pay, but that's what the ask is. And those aren't auction prices. Those are from like dealers, that have these cars, or independent dealers and all this shit. But it is pretty fucking wild out there when you see an SC go for $90,000. Now it's a clean SC, don't get me wrong, but shit, man, $90,000 is $90,000.
Yeah.
I mean, let's rewind a little bit. That 3 years ago, that's buying you a 997 GT3.
There's at least a 996 GT3 there.
Oh yeah, I mean, for 90, you could still grab. Well, there's a couple of them out there that I know of that you can get for less than 90 996 GT3s. But yeah, I mean, it's anything. I think it's the old tell. It's the bar talk, right? Where you're at the bar and you're like, well, shit, back in my day, I remember I used to get one of those cars for $8,000, and then the next generation comes and it's like, man, we used to buy those things for $15,000. And the next generation comes and it's like, man, we used to buy them for $30,000. And it's like, man, I remember when they're $30,000. Now they're $60,000. Now they're $90,000. It's like, shit, man. I think the interesting thing of this is I think there's, and I'm not included in this conversation because I don't think this is going to happen, but there is a camp of people that think that these things are going to take a dive after a little while. I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm not saying that to like inflate the market. Yeah. I really don't think it's going to happen because as many as they made, you're like, there's so many, and I've heard this argument from so many Porsche enthusiasts before. They're like, oh, they made so many of them. And I was like, where the fuck are they all at then?
You don't see them on the road every day.
Exactly. Where are they all just fucking hiding everywhere? Where are they all at? If they're so, I mean, the numbers don't lie. Don't get me wrong. But like the rate of attrition, who knows what happened to all of those cars over time.
I will say today,
I'll tell you what, you and I go to a lot of historic racing. I'm sure a lot of them got ditched over the years out there.
That's true, because they were cheap.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't. But and where I'm going with this is I do believe that they will level off, but I think they'll hold. I don't think there'll be a step back because Porsches haven't shown a step back really. Like anytime there's been a climb. Yes, it's cooled off, but it's stayed wherever the number where it cooled off at, it stays there.
It does seem like that. What was I reading?
And it may sit there for a few years before it goes back up. But
like I saw something for RS Americas, so I didn't know how much they went for back in the day, but they went for like 54,000.
Oh yeah, that's nothing.
Which is 109,000 in today's inflation, and right now they're around that same price.
Yeah.
So they've almost maintained their value even with inflation for the entire time they've been alive.
Oh yeah, good luck finding an RSA for 109,000 right now too. You're spending
50,
turbo money now for one of those where 2 years ago you could buy a 965 turbo, I guess you would call it, like a 91 or 92. So we're not talking the 3.6, we're talking like the 3.3 for 120, 130. Like you used to be able to buy RSAs for 60, 70,000.
Yep.
You know, 80 was all the money for one of those, like for the perfect one. Yeah, and those are strong. Everything's strong. It doesn't matter what it is.
So with this climbing, rising market, is there anything that's still kind of what do you see as a deal out there?
I still think as much as like I would hunt down, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here and you're shopping air cooleds. I really would go after. I would try to find a unique color 914 2 liter. The 1.7s are fine, but there's the 2.0s. Not that that's a super special or a huge amount of displacement over the 1.7, but if you can find one that's a 2.0, and I'm not talking about an OG like one, even if it's a motor transplant. I don't care if it's been hot rodded or whatever, but I'm saying if it's a unique color like a cool like lime green or a viper green or something like that, or a cool blue or like a chartreuse or whatever.
Does it to be a factory color, or it just happens to be that color? Because if it's a motor swap, then why?
It would be nice if it came from the factory that way, but for me, it's not a deal breaker. And I still think that's affordable money. That's an arguing point for you if you're a negotiator. If it's not a factory color, but it is a cool color you like, don't show your poker face and be like, "Oh, I really love the color." Be like, "Oh, well, it's use the opposite of it. Be like, it's not a factory color, even though you love it. Keep that inside. Don't show that. Say, okay, well, fuck, it's not." Yeah, I wish it was the factory color. You got to knock some money off of this because I got to get this repainted someday. But inside, you're like, I fucking love this color.
It's like the Ghostbusters when they're like checking out the building. They're like, I don't know. It looks like this place could be condemned. And
exactly.
It's down the fire pole.
Exactly.
It's like, I love this place. Yeah. You guys see this?
It's like, just show your poker face. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, well, I guess we're taking it. But I mean, honestly, like if I was shopping in here, I think that's still affordable money. Like I saw, and actually, I saw a really cool. Unlisted 1.7 liter Porsche, almost like in a pastel blue, for sale, and it was super reasonable. I want to say it was like 13 grand, and it wasn't like a roach car. It was clean. Everything was clean. It was like, if I didn't have a used car lot sitting outside in my house, I would buy that car, and it's in California, so I would have to, I'd even have to pay to. Well, I wouldn't drive that cross country, but I would ship it because I don't know the car. I mean, that's too much of a risk. But anyways, I'd still pay an extra $1,000 to ship it. And I'm not saying that in the sense of, okay, well, I'm being pushed into that market. For me, I'm kind of a vintage guy anyway, so I kind of like 914s for a couple reasons. And my two major reasons is, well, actually, I'll take three. So I'm going to finish with
three reasons.
The last reason will make sense after I tell you the first two. So as pop-up headlights, I don't own a car I have pop-up headlights. I've always wanted a car that had pop-up headlights, never had one. I think it's pretty rad that it's a target top, that the top can come off. Because we live in Florida, maybe that doesn't work for everybody's climate, but for me, I think that's pretty rad. And then the third one is, I got a bunch of 911s already. So it's not my first car. No. Now, is that a knock saying, would I not buy one as my first car? If that's where all my money was at and that's all I could afford, well, the market's the market, man. If you've got 13, 14, 15 grand and that's all you got and you want a vintage air-cooled Porsche, that's where you're going. There is no sweetheart deal that's coming that you're going to get in and drive. I'm talking about those cars are drivable cars. That 914 is a drivable car. That doesn't need. I'm not talking about buying some bucket that's been sitting in somebody's garage for 30 years that you think that you're going to get running with some WD-40 and some carb spray. Like, no, that thing's going to need $30,000 worth of work if you pay 15 grand for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a thing too. You have to, no matter if you're hunting that project, you got to remember it's a Porsche project.
Yeah.
So.
And if you don't know, because you don't own a Porsche, everything air cooled parts wise, the parts are the parts, man. There is no super discount on parts.
Yeah, they don't make anymore. So
yeah, well, I mean they are. They're remanufacturing them, but the market knows what the price is. So there isn't like some secret website who sells them 50% less than everybody else.
No
because guess what? Everyone would know that. And their shit would be buying from there all the time.
Yeah, and it'd be sold out anyways.
Exactly. So like what I'm getting at is everybody who sells Porsche aftermarket parts, whether it be Pelican or any of these other places, they know what the market value is on the parts. And it's almost kind of an unwritten rule that all of their pricing is pretty close because they don't want to run each other out of business. So you're paying the price of the part regardless.
So 914 is your pick for a deal?
I think so here's the deal. Like, you can fall into a lot of categories, right? I don't want to go into the transaxle area. That's still in the Porsche realm, but I'm saying affordable air cooled, and we're talking about air cooled stuff. 914. Now, you obviously transaxle all water cooled stuff. You can get pop up headlights there from a 944. That's different. That's a whole different animal. I'm talking about vintage air cooled.
About the same amount of horsepower, though.
Yeah, and honestly, I think me personally, I think a 914 is cooler than 944. Just maybe because it's older, so it's got that vintage vibe, and it's mid-engine, so that's also cool. I mean, and I'm not trying to talk anybody into one, but I think if you're out there shopping in this ridiculous market, and you feel like you're being edged out, and we talked about it before, it's like, oh, I'm gonna just wait this out. I don't think that's the answer either. Like, I really don't think waiting it out is good because, like I said before, they're not going to go down. If anything, they're going to keep trickling up, and then maybe they'll plateau and they'll just stay there for a while. But I don't think any deals are going to be had still. I think once all of these are carried up, they're just going to kind of live at that number. There may be a big delta between, like, maybe if a car's more clapped out than the other one, like, okay, a clean Carrera 86 sold for 90. You know, this one's not as clean, same year, but had 200,000 miles more on it.
80.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, probably 55.
Yeah.
And it seems like a large delta, but still 55,000 miles for a car pretty much needs everything still mechanically. Yeah, you got a shell, but you got to get into that thing. So unless it has phenomenal maintenance, but it's still going to need something. So it's not perfect, but if you're not looking, none of them are perfect. Let's be honest. Even the $90,000 one's not perfect. It's going to need shit.
Yep.
So I think that's where the below 20, and even if you have 20, I would, like I said, go hunt that car I just said. Hunt a 2-liter in a cool color, because you're parking money, because it's not like those are going to go down.
Yeah, they've already went up so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that car we just talking about, that used to be a $8,000 car. Now it's trading at 16, so it's already doubled. 16, 17, 18,000, and special color maybe 20, 24.
I mean, there's a few of them going in the mid-20s to 30s right
I mean,
now.
shit, I saw Mexico Blue, a factory Mexico Blue 2-liter. The ask on it is 35. I mean, it's clean. It's super, super clean, but it's 35,000. 35,000 used to get you a really clean SC.
Yep.
Like clean, like low miles SC.
Now it gets you like a quarter of the way there.
Yeah. So I think that's where the smart money is if you want to be in the air cooled market right now, and I think it's safe money. Same with you. Like not that you want that, but I think if you're in there and maybe you have a little bit of money, you can park it. And so if you're using that car as a stepstone to maybe get into a higher level 911 air cooled, whatever it may be, you can check the box. You can use this as collateral in the sense of you can resell it for what you paid for it, maybe even a little bit more. Take that money that you drove that car around with, and say you bought it for 20, you sold it for 25. Now take your 25 grand and go put it towards your SC or whatever you want to buy, or your Carrera or your 964 or whatever it is, just so you can experience some driving instead of sitting out there like, oh my God, what's happening? The market's keeping going up. You know, I see so many things. Even, and then circling back to the water cooled side, okay, touring GT3s.
those wallets I've seen more
Through the
GT3
roof, right?
tourings like
Through the roof.
posted recently than
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
you see these like memes and stuff, or Porsche memes from people, and they're like, "Oh, my dream car continues to go up," you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's an expensive dream car to begin with. Don't get me wrong. Maybe that's what the dream car, but yeah, when it's selling now, even secondhand, used like 10,000 miles, you know, 15,000 miles, they're selling for like 230, 240. Some of them for 250. If it's in a special color, you know, if I think I saw the one on Bring a Trailer. I think that one brought almost like 280.
I think I would just,
and it was like because it was in like slate gray, non-metallic, and it was like and it had all the right specs, and it had like 3,000 miles on it, super low miles.
Yeah.
So just think of how much that's going over the price that it was.
I just take the head and do a GT3 RS.
Yeah.
Just deal with the wing, I guess.
I'm just interested to see what's gonna happen to those cars, because the impact will not do anything to the air-cooled market, but usually the new gen GT cars usually slow the momentum down on the prior GT cars, especially the closest year to it.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe people are just trying to hype it up, get their money, get out of them, and then get the new one.
It could be.
Yeah.
Well, it might not even just be hyping them up. I think it's the entire market has helped inflate those cars, because they were already expensive cars anyways. And before the market got out of control, even those cars resale used were still pretty high.
Yeah.
You couldn't buy a Touring for less than like 200,000. Like, it wasn't happening because there were so few of them. And everybody wanted a manual, so went into that thing too. Almost kind of like the 18 GT3 4.0s in manual are going for so much right now.
Yep.
And they held value for a while too. It's not like they went down. But I'd be interested to see when the 992 GT3 manuals start hitting the market.
See if there's a dip.
Yeah, or if, you know, people settle down because they're like, okay, well, dude, I don't want that. I want that one now. So I wonder if that'll back that car down some to make them more in reach.
Somebody might like the styling better than the 992.
It's possible. I mean, but I'm sure everybody says that about every generation, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, I don't like the way that one looks. I don't like the way that one looks. It's all selling tactics and screwing with people's psyche and whatever. But it's a nuts market, and I think it was worth a topic of talking about. And if you're not a shopper and you don't care, if you just want to be able to kill some time, take 5 minutes and just type in Porsche on Bring a Trailer and just look at the past sales of what cars have sold for. If you don't want to waste your time looking at current bids because you're speculating what that car is going to end at, but just look at what stuff is hammered in the last like 20 or 30 days. I bet you'd be shocked. I bet you'd be shocked by especially the cars. And some of the key things to look at is look at the mileage on the car. The cars look good, you know, in photos. A lot of cars can show, but look at the mileage and then look at what the hammer price is on a lot of these, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? Yeah. You're like, that car had 150,000 miles and it went for 60 grand
all day,
and it hasn't had no engine work on it ever. So it needs a full engine rebuild, and it still sold for 60.
It's good.
But
another 150.
Customer racing team, Fricadilla Racing, places first and second at the Eiffel Classic. Congratulations to them. If you're not familiar with them, they are a customer-based racing Porsche team out in Germany. But they always bring the house, so good for them. Very, very tough race, and they look strong. Good for them.
That was the 24-hour qualifying, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That had Patrick Pilet and
yeah, Bamber, Tandy, all those, like, all of them were racing together out there in 1 and 2. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
The dream teams. Yeah, the dream team.
Because a lot of those are customer racing guys, but yeah, that's.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about not having to. They're not fielding a factory team, so they're like, we'll just take your factory race car drivers and go win with our customer team. Sound good? And they're like, yes, let's do that. But congrats to them. So let's close with one last little EV thing. So Porsche says they are currently working on the Boxster EV concept. It's due very, very soon, they say.
That's cool. Now,
is this exciting? Is this blah? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they take advantage of this skateboard type platform where you can plug and play almost cars like Legos on them or whatever, model cars or whatever you want to do? And do they take advantage of that design language and do something sexy with the body?
I hope so. I hope they. That's what I was just thinking. I hope it looks so futuristic / different than anything they've made before for the Boxer. I mean, they should be able to. It's going to be interesting because are they going to be able to keep the frunk and trunk and how are they going to? Do they need that room or do they not? I think it's going to be super sleek if they follow anything that they've done with a race car heritage. Maybe it'll be the 4 headlight type, for each pair, for the pair.
I'm sure there'll be some of that Taycan
just
type stuff in there.
And then just super clean, all touch in the inside. I think it'll look cool. It'll be definitely the most powerful Boxster they ever made.
Yeah,
that's something to look forward to. You can't
I think
Porsche.
I think Porsche is going to take advantage of this. And to contradict what I was saying about the Macan earlier, and not that the Macan may look sexy. Who knows when it's finally done? I don't imagine them selling something it doesn't. But I definitely think since this is supposed to be a sports car, I think this car actually, and Porsche doesn't need saving, so it's not the same terms, but how the Boxster kind of saved them initially back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I think this can have a second wave of that, meaning like of interest. I don't mean it from a saving standpoint because they're fine, but I think this car is going to help them print even more money because what I think this car is going to appeal to, because it's going to look sexy, but it's going to be an EV. I think there's going to be a whole nother demographic of people, male and female, that are going to look at this car and be like, oh my God, I'm being eco-friendly and I have a sports car and it's a convertible. Like,
right
this
now
is pretty
exist.
Awesome.
I mean, Elon can keep vape wearing that Roadster all he wants
exactly.
to. Until
And
Porsche
if this
makes
thing,
a Boxster.
yeah, and if this thing, they may be first to market with this, where they're not first to market on the Macan where I was talking about, but if they hit first to market on this thing might kill, man. Like, literally kill.
It might be pretty quick too.
It's not going to be slow. We know that. It's not going to be slow. And how many people are probably driving across country in a Boxster gasoline one right now? Not too many. I mean, there's probably a couple road trip diehard guys out there or gals, but in general, probably not a lot. So what I'm getting at is this is going to be an around town sports car, and I think they're going to play into that perfectly. They're going to be like,
they're going to try to make it affordable, just like they do the Boxster
exactly.
now. And
it'll probably only have like 200 miles of range, but it'll be quick, but it won't be staggeringly fast like the Taycan, but it's going to be way faster than any Boxster that exists right now. It's probably going to make the cool whir noise. It's going to have the top down. It's probably going to look super, super futuristic, I would imagine. It's probably not going to look like anything like the Boxster looks right now, I wouldn't think. Like very Tron-esque or something like that would be really cool.
Even more aerodynamic than it currently is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're going to hold it back at all from being faster than GT4 or any of the other products kind of in that line?
I don't know, because
Speedster or whatever.
I think that maybe in their house, I'm just guessing, EV stuff doesn't translate. In my mind, I'm just like, well, that's different. That's EV. I think that's easy to say that.
There's nothing they've released yet the Taycan's outside of all their lines, so we haven't had a chance to see them release something. Yeah, I guess petrol to EV.
Yeah, but I think that would be their argument, right? They'd be like, if somebody came to them and they say, oh well, my Spider is slower than the EV, I don't think they'll ever have that problem, because I think Spider buyers aren't buying it because they're worried about 0 to 60 times or any of that stuff. And same thing with their GT customers. They're not going to sit there like with the Cayman, this thing, they're going to say like, well, my GT4 is slower than the Cayman EV. Usually their customers are pretty in tune with the engineering and understand how things work. And even if they don't, it's very easy to explain. Well, they're like, well, that's an electric car. It puts all the power and torque down immediately with 0 wheel slip. You're driving this because you like the sound of an engine. You can buy this car if you want, if all you care about is speed. And I think that's a sales tactic that they may use in-house that may work for them.
So you think all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive? I think they're just going to keep it rear-wheel drive just like the...
Yeah, it's cheaper because then you don't have to run motors up front. I think they would keep it rear-wheel drive and run one motor instead of 2 motors. I don't think there's any reason to run a Boxster all-wheel drive.
No, I'm just asking.
No. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't mean it like to challenge your point. I'm just thinking out loud and saying like I don't I don't really see them having a point to have to do that. So there's weight saving right there.
That's true.
I'm excited to see it. I don't think I'm ever going to be a buyer for it, but I think it's going to be pretty rad to see around town. I'm excited to see people buy them, and I just want to see them out like in the wild, actually, because I got a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be pretty radical designing, I bet, because they're going to take an opportunity to say, well, this is an electric car.
And it's all new.
And yeah. And it doesn't need to look like the other one. It doesn't need to follow the design language of the other one. And maybe that could be another selling point where the model line, but it may cost them more because we thought about this before too, where I don't know, like from a manufacturing standpoint, you don't want to have too much different design geometry within the line, right? Meaning like if they're making combustion Boxsters and they're making EV Boxsters, you don't want a completely different shell for each one. But, because then you're like, shit, well...
Yeah, but to your point of the skateboard technology, if it is close enough, or it is, I mean, they're not the same size, the Taycan and the Boxster, I don't think.
No, they're not.
Off the top, so there's still probably be, maybe that's a different world. Maybe they, that's where it delineates, and they're doing, okay, it doesn't matter, boom, they got a shell, and go.
Yeah, because if you think about it, the Boxster's not going to be, if it's an EV, like, because they have an EV factory, it's not going to be made in the combustion. The EV one's not going to be made in the combustion factory by the combustion ones, even if they look the same. So maybe they do. That would be really interesting to see two different cars within the same model year that look totally different. One being combustion and one being EV. That would be wild.
But you would want to, because that's brand.
No.
Like, okay, that's the EV one. Exactly.
I think that would be rad to do that. And I hope they actually do it that way, because I like that actually, where it's actually really, like you just said, from a visual standpoint, when you see it, you're like, that's the EV Boxster. You're like, oh, that's a combustion one. You don't even have to, you can see it right away. But that's all the news I have. You have anything?
Nope, you had all the news, so.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And we really, really do appreciate all the comments. And if you haven't left one yet, please take the time to do it. It literally takes 20 seconds to do it.
Some stars.
Let us know we're doing a good job. It actually does help us with traction and future sponsorships where we can show them how people are engaging with us, right?
Yep.
So thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCar Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCar Talk or online at PCarTalk.com.